do you ever feel like you keep doing the right things? You keep doing the right strategy. You keep doing the right things in your relationship. You keep doing the right things with your message. You keep doing the right strategy. You keep doing all the right things, but you're still not seeing the results or the harmony you want inside of relationships. Well, the doing is all masculine energy. And you actually need to incorporate feminine energy into your life, your business, your message, and everything in order to create harmony. After working with thousands of students and going through my own personal development journey, what I have learned is that the more feminine energy I combined with masculine energy, the more results I see. So if you're confused on what I'm talking about or you're curious to learn more, well, keep on listening because that's exactly what we're talking about on today's episode. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the yin and the yang, the feminine and the masculine. We just released an episode today, so I don't know when this episode is going to be released, but we released an episode on November 2nd of the podcast, and I talked about two invisible elements that are needed for messaging. And those were evolution and those were in mastery. And so one of the reasons why those are really important is because that's kind of the feminine energy of messaging, of business. And I believe as things progress, as the world moves on, as human race, the human race moves through, our evolution, we actually need to embrace both the feminine and the masculine energy. And today's episode is going to be talking about how to do that, why it's important, and how I've done that both in my messaging, inside of my business, with my team, and just in my life. And I'm going to give you a quick little overview of how this works, because in the podcast episode we released on the 2nd, we talked about evolution and we talked about mastery. Now, here's my definition of masculine and feminine energy, or the yin and the yang, is that the feminine energy tends to be more of the invisible stuff. So the things we can't really see, but actually have huge results or effects on the results that we see inside of our life. So mastery is one of those things where it's an invisible task, right? So some people come into our program and they just think, I need to know what to say. I need the framework. I need the script template. I need to know the language pattern. That's all masculine energy. That's all like, here's the steps. Here's the actions. Here's the things to go do. Here's the strategy. And the feminine is really like, what do you fill up that strategy with? The invisible stuff, the things you can't really tangibly hold or see or print out on a piece of paper. So someone that has more mastery over their craft will be able to make those things more effective, the scripts and the templates. And I realized this when we started having a lot of students go through our programs, and I started realizing it's not about the masculine energy. It's not about, here's the things to go do and here's the things to go blah, 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 blah. It's more about that invisible mastery, evolution, remembering who you are, opening up your heart, things like that. And I want to be very clear. When I say masculine and feminine energy, I'm not talking about like masculine being like, oh yeah, I'm a tough dude, like go get 'em, bro. Like I'm not talking about like that bro marketing or this like toughness that males have to embrace, at least in the form of business. When I say masculine energy, I really am talking about like strategy, action items, frameworks, basically things to go do. Okay, so I want to be very clear on that. And the feminine energy doesn't mean necessarily get into the stereotypical things that you might think, like, getting into your emotions or being sensitive or things like that. Although it can be, for me, I would say I am a good blend of both because I can tap into emotions. I do operate from my heart but I also run the business from a structure and a process as best as I can too. That's why Taylor's here. Taylor, funny enough, Taylor is the masculine energy inside of the business because she's very systems, process, runs the operations. And I'm very much that feminine energy of our IP, living with my heart, operating with my heart, working with the students, remembering who I am, a lot of that stuff. And you need both. In fact, both you can't operate without both. And I think the way the world is going and the way society is going, as course creators and online business owners, we actually need both. And I think for a long time, the online space has been very masculine driven. And I'm telling you right now, that won't last. And we already see it now. A lot of courses and a lot of programs have been very masculine energy heavy. And what I mean by masculine energy heavy is it's very much about here's the downloads, here's the tangible, here's the process, here's the framework, here's what I do. And they leave no room for the individual person going through the program. You don't let the person uncover who they are. You don't let them explore. You don't let them find their own individuality that gets put into the masculine. And I'm telling you, just because you have a process that worked for you, it doesn't mean that the same person going through your program is going to have the same DNA makeup as you. They're not going to have the same genes. They're not going to have the same strengths. They're not going to have the same past emotional trauma. They're not going to have the same past indoctrinations. They're not going to have the same childhood as you, which means the system and the process that worked for you may not work for all of them. Which means that courses and programs need to adapt to individuals and individuality and let that person explore elements of themselves and their hearts and who they are and where their strengths are, and then take that stuff and put it into your systems. And again, I don't care if you're a weight loss coach, you're a marketing coach, you help people train dogs, cats. I don't care if you help people start a fashion line or whatever it is you do. When you create a program or a course, you need to blend the masculine and the feminine. You need to leave room for an individual to have exploration of how your process fits with them. There needs to be adjustments. And that's very much where our program is heading, where we have fit so much into the masculine energy. Like here's the frameworks, here's the processes, here's the language patterns, here's the script templates. And we've done a little bit of the feminine energy work. You 4Xers do know that. But we're going to be embracing more of that. We're going to be talking about the evolution more. We're going to be talking about mastery a little bit more. We're going to be talking about remembering who you are a little bit more, getting you to the core of who you are, stripping the external world. We're going to be incorporating a lot more feminine energy because they work together. So for me, to get to the root of all of this, that feminine energy actually comes from increased awareness. And what happens is when we start to increase our awareness as individuals, we get to see more invisible elements. To me, that is the feminine. When we start to see more of these invisible elements, this could be things like, again, I've mentioned a few times, our past trauma or our past indoctrinations, and we step into when we start to see all of these things, like where our beliefs came from, we start to realize that things we thought to be true weren't actually our ideas. When we get to find the strength of how we want to help people, that type of stuff those are all invisible elements. As we increase our awareness, we become more conscious. We increase our awareness, and we actually step more into the feminine energy. So if you want to increase the feminine energy of yourself, we have to start increasing your awareness. You have to become aware of things that you haven't been aware of. You have to go from unconscious to conscious. You have to be more conscious and more aware. But the thing is when you do that work, and when your students do that work, and you take the findings of that, of who you are, who they are, heal certain parts of yourself, want to change and grow yourself, you open up your heart more, all of those things. And I'm telling you right now, when you plug that into the masculine, it makes the masculine more powerful. And what's interesting is when the masculine becomes more powerful, that means you start to do more things. You know what happens when you do more things? You make more mistakes, you get more experiences, and those things bring you more feminine energy. Because when you make more mistakes, you now have a deeper level of compassion for people going through the same thing. For example, when I was $40,000 in debt, back in 2017, I had never been in that amount of debt before. And I got into debt by doing very masculine energy things, which was, here's the action items I'm going to go do. I'm going to kill my business off. Like, it's just very like male oriented action. I'm just going to go do it. I'm going to be courageous and I'm just going to go do it. Killed off the business, like just took the action. And that led me to living an experience of being in debt, which increased my awareness to a lot of things. It made me more aware of what it feels like to experience this kind of debt. It made me more aware of like how easily you can get into this debt. It made me aware of so many things. I increased my awareness. But what it did is, living through that experience, it really opened up my heart and allowed me to find a deeper level of compassion for people who are in debt and running businesses. It gave me a deeper level of compassion for people who want to be in my program, but can't afford it because they're in debt. I'm much more, instead of being like, nope, you got to pay whatever. And you got to everyone else pays. You got to suck it up, like figure it out. I have a deeper level of compassion. Sometimes we give out scholarships. Like if someone goes through our launch and they're really, really involved with the launch, commenting on everything, I know who they are. Like they always show up, and then they send me a message and it's like, here's my situation. I'm actually in debt. I know that will change everything for me. I sometimes will be like, here's an assignment I want you to go do. If you do this assignment, then we will consider giving you a scholarship. And I'm not going to tell you what that assignment is, but we go and we do that. Why? Because I have a deeper level of compassion. I'm living more in my heart. But again, the only reason I knew how to do that or to get to that level was because I was doing the male energy, the masculine energy, which was the actions and the items. So again, they go hand in hand. And now I have a deeper level of compassion moving forward that I can put into content, I can put into our launches, I can take action on, again, masculine. So they go hand in hand, because doing the masculine work, the masculine energy work, it increases awareness. And then when you have increased awareness, it allows you to tap into more of the feminine energy. They have to coexist. And I'm telling you right now that if you have one more than the other inside of your life and in your business, it will cause disruption. And I'm willing to bet that if you have disruption in your life or your business, there might be an imbalance of masculine and feminine energy. I mean, think about your relationship. And this is something that I've experienced in my own relationship. I've been with my wife for 22 years. And there's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of growth. You're both always growing. And, you always, the phrase, you either grow together or you grow apart. And luckily for myself and my wife, we've been consistently growing together overall. Like obviously there's certain years where we're not, but we always kind of catch back up. But, when there's a disruption in our relationship, and I'll give you an example, is that if I'm not going to show up to offer emotional support for my wife, which I would classify as that feminine energy, and I'm just going to, instead of listening to her problems, I'm going to focus more on the masculine of like, look, just go shift your perspective. Just get over it. Go do these things. Like think about something positive. That's very masculine energy. And I'm constantly living in that. It's going to cause disruption because she's not going to feel heard. She's not going to feel appreciated. She's not going to feel like I'm supporting her. So I need both. And it's the same thing with your team. It's the same thing with the business. It's the same thing with your program. It's the same thing with your marketing. You need both in order to operate. And again, it doesn't matter if you classify yourself as a female or you classify yourself as a male, because that has nothing to do with if you're operating in masculine or feminine energy. We need both of them to operate. And again, it's all about awareness. And I love this quote from, I think it's Lao Tzu, but it's spelled Tzu. The key to growth is the introduction of higher dimensions of consciousness into our awareness. I can't tell you guys how important it is to go increase your awareness. Increased awareness really is the starting point of blending the masculine and the feminine. Because when you go increase your awareness, you have to take masculine action to go do that. But if you choose to see it, it leaves you with a lot of feminine energy exploration. You need both. And I've experienced this, several times, or not even several, in so many different elements of my life, over and over and over again. And I can tell you the times where I see the most success in life and building a team have been when I've been able to blend both. We'll talk more about team and all that stuff in a second, but a great way to look at this is, look at going into a job and you had a boss who's very like, go do this. I'm the boss. Here's our process. Here's our operations. Don't change it. Don't whatever. And it makes you frustrated and your boss doesn't want to hear your frustration. You're not going to show up as a very happy employee. It's not going to create a very good culture inside of your business. However, if the boss said, this is our process and how to do it, how to get something done, and you said, I'm frustrated about it because it's not very efficient. And the boss said, I understand your frustration. Tell me about it. Like, why are you frustrated? And they opened up their heart and actually cared. And you start sharing those ideas. There could be great ideas that are now uncovered because of a feminine energy action, I guess, that now can make the masculine energy within that business a lot more powerful. Not only that, but it creates a better bond between you and the boss. And the stronger bonds that you can create within your culture, the more efficient your business machine is going to operate. We need both. And as a man, sometimes that is not easy to admit or to say or to even do. I think, to be honest with you, I think it's a lot easier for females to embrace masculine energy just because that's the way things have been done for so long than it is for a male to embrace a lot of the feminine. But as males, we need to embrace that, especially where society is going, where the world is going. And especially in today's times with so many people dealing with so many things like COVID and being locked down has just sped up so many things for people where now more than ever, people need to be heard. People need to live in more compassion. We need to fight less. We need to get out of our perspectives and just love and care for people more. Now more than ever, we need the blend of both of those because you need both of them to exist. If I had just so much feminine energy inside of my company where it's like, oh, I love you guys. You can have a day off today. Or I'm just so happy that, you can go do whatever you want within the company. And let me just listen to your feelings. And here's what I believe. And here's how I want to help you guys or whatever, there's no process or system to it. It's chaos. It'd be like too much of that is chaos, which means we need a system and a process. And so when I operate with my team, I try to operate with a lot of that feminine energy, open my heart, show them that I care because I really do. But at the same time, there's also a system and a process that we have to operate within the company to bring structure. But when you add love and compassion and rapport and connection with a team into a system and a process, you get mega results. And if you've had problems inside your company, you're probably missing one or the other. So the question is how do we start to do that? How do we increase our awareness? And why is it so important? Well, we've all heard the phrase, a tree falls in the woods. Does it exist? Like if a tree falls in the wood, does it actually exist? And the way I look at this is the answer is it's an individual answer. It's not a collective answer for everyone. If a tree falls in the woods and you're not aware of it, then no, it does not exist for you because it did not enter your awareness. You didn't see it. You didn't hear it. It didn't exist for you. You're going on throughout your day. And right now, I guarantee during this podcast episode, there is a tree in the woods that fell down somewhere, but you didn't know about it. It didn't enter your awareness. So for you, it did not exist. So we have to start to open up our awareness. We have to start exploring that invisible side. To give you guys another example of how this works is, if you're listening to this podcast episode, let me go here. The first step that I had to explore, there's a couple ways that I had to do this. Number one is I had to realize that my perceived version of reality wasn't real, that there is so much more out there than we take for granted. There's like energy that we can't see, although we can feel it. And there's like, just different levels of dimensions and all sorts of stuff. And I can go down a rabbit hole with this stuff, and I won't. But we have to first realize that this podcast episode, the only reason it exists for you if you're listening to it is because you have the ability to hear. We have our 5 senses, and our 5 senses form our reality. But you have to understand that if you didn't have the ability to hear, then this podcast wouldn't exist. It wouldn't have entered your awareness. Therefore, it wouldn't have existed for you. So the question that I want to ask you is, what exists right now that is outside of your awareness because you don't have the sense or skill or ability to be able to pick up on that? And when we look at vibration, we look at energy, we look at frequency, which tapping into the female or to the feminine energy, that you can see sort different vibrations, different frequencies, different energy. You can start to see and sense those things. And in fact, you guys have the ability to sense a lot of that stuff. You feel it, right? Intuition feel. Like when someone is living a little bit more in the feminine energy and they have a true compassion for you and a true open heart, you can feel it when you're around them. But it's not going to be one of your 5 senses, because I would say we have more than 5 senses. We just have lost the ability to use them. But experience and increasing awareness and going and doing things, for me, has unlocked more and more and more and more of that. This is why sitting in the silence is so important, because it allows me to uncover a lot of these other senses. It allows me to feel intuitively, a lot of things. It allows me to be a better leader, be a better business owner. Like, for example, if Taylor's in a bad mood and we're having a conversation, I can feel the energy behind that. And when I'm open to feeling that energy behind it, I can now operate in that feminine energy to move her out of it. And then at the same time, if I feel like she's in a very empowered state and she's ready to take action, and I can feel that, like that her energy it enters my awareness, and I can feel that, I can now show up and give her like a framework or a process or advice on what to go do to accomplish something, because she's in an empowered state. So by increasing my awareness, being more open, operating outside the 5 senses, it allows me to pick up on things that other people can't pick up on. And it allows me to maneuver more to feminine, more to masculine, but it creates this beautiful blend of both energies to create results that you can't create otherwise. And I hope that's making sense. So the question is, how do we start to increase our awareness? There was a kind of a funny story that I always like to tell that is the first step to increasing our awareness. There was an emperor who visited a Zen master to ask about the afterlife. And he asked, the emperor asked the Zen master, when an enlightened man dies, what happens to his soul? And the Zen master said, I have no idea. And then the emperor demanded, how could you not know? You're a Zen master. And the Zen master proclaimed, but I am not a dead Zen master. And the reason why I like telling that story is because increased awareness does come from action. It does come from doing. It doesn't come from procrastination. It doesn't come from waiting till you're quote unquote ready. It doesn't come from studying more. Increased awareness literally happens through experience, through gaining the knowing. You get higher levels of awareness. You get more clarity, more connections, more ahas, more creativity. And when you start to take action, and what it really is doing, when you take more action and you have more experience, it creates a new structure for your thinking mind to operate from. So you can think differently, you become more aware. But again, what it does, it's not just about learning more things It's also about experiencing more things, because then you're able to have more compassion. You're able to feel more. You're able to live in more love. Like if I had never had that whole situation with debt happen to me, the level of compassion I have for people who are going through debt would be almost non-existent. I probably would have lived more in the masculine energy of just said, suck it up, buttercup, get through it. You're going to be fine. But now I don't do that. Why? Because I took the action. I increased my awareness. I understood what it felt like, and I live more in compassion. Now my answer to helping people through debt is much more, it starts with the emotions. I understand what you're feeling. It doesn't feel good. You probably have a pit in the bottom of your stomach. And then once I build that emotional rapport, I can now move on to, here's some processes or things that I would consider if I were you. I'm blending both. Now the person feels heard. They're way more receptive of listening to the action steps. It's a nice blend that gets bigger and better results. And so I can tell you a million stories of when I've increased my awareness and a lot of different things like that. But the story I always like telling is when my son, when he built his bow and arrow, and I think I've told it on this podcast once or twice, and I've told it to the students a few times, but basically I'll tell a short version of it. My son came in and he asked me for a piece of string, and he had a stick in his hand. I was like, what are you doing? I don't know if I want to give you a string. And he's like, I'm just going to build something, Dad. And I'm like, okay, great, whatever, go build your thing. And I go in the backyard and I watch him build it. I give him the string, and I realize he's trying to make a bow and arrow, but he's never done it before. So he finally comes in and he asks for help. And I said, okay, we need a stick that bends. That stick is too big. So he gets a new stick. We make the bow and arrow. He puts an arrow in, he pulls the arrow back, but the arrow is too small. So the front of the arrow doesn't hit the bow. It's like kind of dangling around. So I said, okay, Will, we need a bigger stick. So he gets a bigger stick, he shoots it, it goes flying all over the place. And he realizes, oh, we need to put feathers on it like the Indians did. So we took leaves, we put them on the bow or the arrow, shot it, and it went flying across the backyard. And it was amazing. It was this amazing experience. And he now knew how to make a bow and arrow. He went through the mistakes. But really, when we go beneath the surface, what he really did was he increased his awareness and now has a higher level of foundation to build off of. He can create more improvements off the bow and arrow and all of that stuff. But because he increased his awareness with the bow and the arrow and how to make it, he's going to become a better teacher. He can build a better bow and arrow next time. He's going to have a leg over anyone else who he's competing with on building bow and arrows. But more importantly, he's going to be a better leader when it comes to bow and arrow making. And here's why. Not only does he have the experience of making the bow and arrow, he knows what mistakes to avoid, but he's also in tune to the emotions. He's in tune to the frustrations that people are going to be feeling. He's going to be operating from more compassion because he went through those same mistakes. He's going to be more in tune to their thinking, their mistakes, their fears, their concerns, their worries. He's going to have more compassion for it, all while also knowing the best process on how to build a bow and arrow. So when Will goes to communicate and create content and create messaging about bow and arrows, he's going to be able to talk to the emotional side, the compassion side, the structure side, the process side, the action side. He's going to be able to build emotional subconscious rapport with the people because he's going to be able to talk more from experience, more from emotions, more from frustrations, worries, fears. He's going to be able to remove worries and fears better than anyone else. Because of his increased awareness, he now has exposure to both better and more powerful masculine and feminine energy that he can now blend. And I'm telling you right now, if you're the type of person who's taking a lot of action and you're not tapping into that feminine energy, you're leaving a huge amount of money on the table by not incorporating that into your content. When you're not living in compassion or feeling or the emotion inside of your content, inside of your messaging, you're missing the entire feminine energy and you're kind of wasting your experience that you've had. You need to embrace all of it. And so a couple of the things that I want to talk about is how this plays out into my life. And we'll do another episode and go a little bit deeper into the masculine and the feminine. But there's a couple ways that I've been able to do this. And it all stems from focusing on evolvement. Like I really look at what I'm doing as an evolution, as something that evolves. And when you truly understand how evolvement or evolution works, you can get more into your feminine energy a lot easier. You understand mistakes. You understand it's not always about doing the right steps. And you see that there are invisible elements that are extremely powerful. So for me, evolution or evolvement, I don't think evolvement's a word. Was that you, Matt, that told me that? Evolvement? Is that a word? Maybe it is a word. When you focus on evolvement or evolution, it gives you experience. And from experience, compassion is felt deeper. And when compassion is felt deeper, it allows you to access deeper levels of your heart and deeper levels of love. And that's where I really operate from. And so for me, I've done this a few different ways inside of our team. The first one is listening. Like just the act of actually listening without giving my perspective or my opinion, listening first, which by the way is a tough one for me. And I still don't master that all the time, but I'm definitely better now than I think I ever was. That's feminine energy being played out inside of our company. Just the act of listening, just listen to what they're saying without giving your opinion or telling them why they're wrong or why it's not going to work. This doesn't mean you need to act on everything they tell you, but just listen. Number 2 is trust. Trusting that they will make the best decision that they know how. And if they make a decision that doesn't get the results that you want, trusting that a lesson was learned. Also, trusting them and letting them make mistakes. And sometimes things that you think will be a mistake don't end up being a mistake and actually end up being something really amazing. The next one is giving them responsibility. So that's another way in which I've been able to access the feminine energy. And as you can see, the feminine energy things aren't things like here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. They're these things that are really hard to put structure to because feminine energy doesn't have structure. They're like these, again, invisible elements. The second thing is giving them a life. I understand and I'm well aware that my team's vision for their life isn't the same vision that I have for the company. Like if an employee leaves because they want to go chase their dream or a new job or whatever, then I'm happy for them. Go do that. If they want to have a side hustle, great, go do that. Like my business is not your life. Go live a life. And the next one is treating them so good that they don't want to leave. So I try to create an environment and a culture where we do have a lot of that feminine energy, that care, that compassion, that love, the exploration of personal development and growth. But we also have structure to what we do. We have KPIs, we have processes, we have systems. But within that, I also am not living underneath the structure of the 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, 2 weeks off per month, per year thing. That is our basis of where we operate from, but that's flexible. If they want to take 2 weeks off and work 2 hours a day and go on some like vacation overseas or whatever it is, that's fine. Go do it. You have a minimum of 2 weeks off a year. We also just gave our entire team the last 2 weeks of December off to go spend time with their family or do whatever they want. Paid time off. December's slow for us. There's no point to be working. As long as we work hard from now to the end of December, they're going to have like a 2 or 3 week break of doing whatever the heck they want. And again, that came from experience. When I was working for my dad in 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, I remember sitting there going like, I have to work here every day and I get the weekends off to myself. And then I only get 2 weeks a year to myself to do what I want for the next 40 years. Are you kidding me? And I hated it. And so I try to create a culture and create an environment from that compassion, the compassion that I felt of what came from this experience, this frustration. I had increased awareness of what it was like to be in a job, and I was able to live in the compassion and go, I don't want to do that inside of my company. Again, I'm operating with that feminine energy there. We have openness, just being open with them. I'm open with my team, like when I'm going through hard things, usually not in the middle of it, but either after. I'm very open with our numbers and what we're doing and what our profits look like. I don't try to hide anything. This has been another hard one for me, is I try to limit my reaction. So when something happens, I personally, like one of my biggest struggles is that when something happens, I operate from an automated subconscious emotional response. And I try to limit that, and that's been hard for me to do. But at the end of the day, just care about your team. Just care about them. People want to be accepted. People want to feel like they're making a difference, and people want to be challenged. create an environment that allows that to happen. But again, that only happens when you have masculine and you have feminine energy working together. People want to be accepted, so accept them. That's feminine energy. They want to feel like they're making a difference. That's both masculine and feminine energy. Here's our vision, and then here's how we're going to do it. That's masculine and feminine energy. They want to be challenged. That's very masculine energy. Could be feminine as well. But let's talk about your message. How do you incorporate this in your message? Well, this is why we talk about connection content. This is why I tell you, don't do just how-to content all the time. That's very masculine. Here's the things to go do. Action, action, action. Do. Connection has nothing to do with action items, but everything to do with emotions and vision and what you're going to be doing, why you're doing it. Shifting perspective is another way to incorporate both masculine and feminine energy together. When it comes to your message, sit in silence. That is I guess it could be both. When a download comes in, remember that download is coming in because that's from the universe or God or your higher self or your subconscious, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. When you're taking a shower and ideas start flooding in, that is a divine download. That is for you to take and to run with. And there will never be fear. When the initial download comes, if it's from the universe, there will never be fear attached to it because the universe doesn't operate in fear. When the fear comes up, just know that is your thinking mind. The thinking mind starts up and goes, oh, that's not going to work. And that blah, 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 blah. And the fear will come from the thinking mind. It doesn't come from the universe. Again, the message, remembering who you are before the external world told you who you are, saying what you want to say, what's truly on your heart, being in alignment, making sure you're operating in alignment in your purpose and dharma, and focusing on mastery. Those are all feminine ways in which you can use your message. And then obviously there's like how-to content, there's structure to how to release it, how to create it, all that stuff. The next phase is going to be life. So talking about how to use this in life. Understanding what is important to you. Getting to the core of what's important to you. What are your values? Understanding where your compassion is, where your love is. Is your love building your business? Is it for your family? Which one's more important to you? It's also about listening to others in your life, like truly actually listening without giving your perspective all the time. Do the work to be able to actively listen to your spouse, to your boyfriend, to your girlfriend, to your husband, to your wife, to your kids. You know, when your kids are throwing tantrums and they're going crazy and they're like not listening to you and they're screaming at you, I'm willing to bet in most cases, it's probably because they're not feeling like they're heard. And if your kids are throwing a tantrum and you just sit down and you listen to why they're upset and you talk to them and you validate their feelings and make them heard and then set clear boundaries of like, hey, this is what we need to do inside the family to make sure the house is operating, you're likely to get a much better response. The reason why people freak out and they explode is usually because they feel like they're not heard. So listening to others around you without ego is a very, very feminine energy that is very, very necessary. But with your family, at least with mine, we also have structure in how the family needs to operate. You know, you need to sit down at dinner at a certain time because we want to build that connection. You need to make sure your room is clean. Like that's how the household operates. You need to do X, Y, and Z. Like there's a system and a process to how our house runs to keep things efficient. You have to when you have 3 kids. And then this is my own personal preference, but I like to prioritize things in my life based off of what I value more. So for example, if family is one of my top values and business is number 2, I make sure to operate as family is number 1 and business is number 2 priority in my life to a 70% degree or level. And what I mean by that is sometimes the business will require more of my time. And for like a month or 2 during a launch, I'm going to have to prioritize the business over my family in the form of my actions. In my heart, my family will always be more important than the business, but my actions will not reflect that. because I don't think everything's going to be an absolute or 100% all the time. There's seasons, there's things that pop up. There will be time when the business will require more of my time, and I have to be able to show up because there's employees that depend on me. There's students that employ me. There's clients that depend on me. But I am very clear with my family and my wife of like, hey guys, you guys are always my top priority. But right now, for the next month, we're going into a launch, we're going into whatever, I'm going to have to prioritize the business a little bit more. But don't take that as a reflection of you. I'm not mad at you guys. I'm not prioritizing the business over you. You're still the most important thing to me. Again, it's clear communication. And then I go to work and I start doing more things, right? So action and masculine energy and that feminine energy, they both have to exist in order to have harmony and balance in your life. If you want to grow a business, you want to have a really impactful message, you want to have some more harmony in your family life, you have to incorporate both. And I do believe as we move forward as course creators and online business owners, our programs are going to have to reflect this. Our content's going to have to reflect this. Our training's going to have to reflect this. And how we show up and who we show up as are going to have to reflect this. So I know it was a lot. I know we did go a little deep on certain things, and I will be talking more and more about this in future podcast episodes. But if you did like it, let me know. Send us a DM. Let me know. If you have any questions on anything, feel free to send us a DM over on our Instagram. I am Brandon Lucero. And if you have not left us a review on iTunes, please do so now. And let us know what you think about the podcast. I'd be so grateful for that. And I'll see all of you on the next episode. Take care, everyone. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.